What's up guys, Justin here with the CGEssentials.com. So in today's video we're going to check out an exciting new add-on that allows you to do perspective matching for photos inside of Blender, basically allowing you to quickly model from photos. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so Perspective Plotter is a brand new add-on from Mark Kingsnorth. You can download Perspective Plotter by visiting the CGEssentials.com/Perspective Plotter. If you remember, Mark Kingsnorth also brought us the Conform Object add-on and some other add-ons as well. But this one in particular is specifically built to help us model from photos inside of Blender. And so what it does is it allows us to set up our perspective lines directly inside of the program. If you remember, in the past we've done this with F-Spy. But F-Spy is an external program, while this is an actual add-on that you download and installed inside of Blender. So let's take a look at how it works. So basically what you do is, first off, you need to make sure that you install and enable the add-on, and it's called Perspective Plotter. And so when you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to give you some options for setting up your camera. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to hit the 0 key on your numpad in order to get into this camera, right? So we're setting up this view right here, and what it's going to do is, once you've done that, if you tap the N key, notice how it pops up a little menu over here for Perspective Plotter. So that's only going to show up if you're inside of your camera. If you tap the 0 key again to get out of your camera, notice how it doesn't show up anymore. And so what this is going to do is this is going to basically bring in some perspective lines that you can use in order to set up your camera perspective, right? So it's going to mess with your focal length, your different lines are going to go to vanishing points. We'll look at all of that in a second. But first off, what we want to do is we want to import a background image. All right, so what we want to do is we want to take this camera and we want to add a background image. And so the way that we can do that is we're just going to select our camera right here, and we want to go into the camera settings. So we're just going to click on the object data properties for our camera, and then we want to go into the background images section. We want to check this box right here, and we want to click on the option for add image. So once we add an image, it's going to give us the ability to open an image inside of our view. So we're just going to click on open, and we're going to go find our image that we want to bring in. So I'm going to click on the option for open image. And so notice how I'm getting some stretching right now. It's basically taking this image and it's stretching it to fit inside of this whole camera view. We don't want to do that. Notice how we have this red option right here for background unmatched. What we want to do is we want to click on the option for background unmatched. That's going to match our camera to our background image size right here. So now our background image is in our scene. Notice how if I rotate out of this, then I lose my camera view. I just need to hit the 0 key to go back in here in order to get that back. But now we have this image in our scene and we can start modeling on top of it. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to set up our perspective lines so that we're modeling along this properly, right? Because right now this image is just kind of floating in space, and then notice how my axes aren't really like following along with anything. Well, what we want to do is we want to click on the option for plot perspective. And so notice how right now we're getting an error message. Don't worry about that at the moment because we need to fix these perspective lines. But what we need to do is we need to take these lines and we need to align them with the perspective lines of our photo. So notice how, for example, this building, the lines are going off into space towards a vanishing point. Well, we want to align these lines along those perspective lines. So you can do that just by clicking on the ends of these right here, and notice how everything's kind of moving around in here. Don't worry too much about that for right now. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you've selected this and that you are basically aligning these perspective lines with the perspective lines in your image. So the red ones are going to go on red, so they're going to set the red direction, and then we'll have the green ones go the other direction. So again, don't worry too much about what it's doing in my model right now until we've set all of these up. But now we want to take these green ones and we want to align them with our image as well. So notice how I'm just taking this and aligning it right here. And then we're going to do this one more time like this. And so notice how basically what that did is that allowed me to align this whole thing with the perspective lines in my photo. And so one other thing that you might want to do is you might want to click and drag this box right here, or this little point, so that it aligns with the corner of my model. So where this where the perspective lines would meet right here. That way, everything's kind of aligned in here and you can start modeling really quickly. So the other thing you can do is you can also set a reference distance. So for example, let's say that I wanted a reference distance so that I could set this to scale, right? Well, what we can assume is we can assume that one of these doors is probably about 3 feet wide. So I'm going to set a reference distance along the x-axis of probably about a meter. And so notice how what I can do is I can click and drag this in order to resize the scale of my image right here. So I can use this to set how large or small this image is going to be in the background. And so I'm pretty sure my Bonnie model isn't to scale, so I'm not going to worry too much about that for right now, but I'm basically dragging this so that this is about the width of this door right here. And I'm not trying to get like ultra detailed with my scale. I think this is probably going to be good enough. Now what we have in here is we have a camera that's set up and ready for us to start modeling. So I'm going to move my Bonnie model out of the way. Well, notice how now what I can do is I can do a Shift A and I can add a cube that aligns with this, right? And so basically what I'm going to do is, it's helpful to be in wireframe mode when you do this, but I'm going to align this cube with this image inside of my scene, right? So then I can tab into edit mode and I can start editing this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line this whole thing up with this image. So, and probably what I'll do in this case is I'll just extrude this all the way along here. But notice how this box is aligning with the image right here. Well, that means we can use this image in order to set up like our proportions of our model. I can do a Control R and start adding some loop cuts to align this with the stone that's right here, like this. And then I could start extruding these in. So I could use like the extrude manifold. This is a good use for that, because we want it to dissolve the edges. So we could extrude this in, we could extrude this in, just like this. And so basically what this is doing is this is allowing us to use this photo to model from, like this. And so let's say at this point you want to apply some of the textures from this image, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump over into, we'll go to UV editing mode for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the 0 key over here so that I can see this image. Well, what I want to do is I want to use the images from the photo as textures, right? And so the way that I can do that is I can just really quickly set up a new material. And actually I want to jump into my shader editor for a second. And I'm just going to add a new material. And I'll just drag that photo image in from Windows Explorer right here, and I can just plug the color into my base color right here. So basically what I've done is I've created a texture from this image right here. And you may want to play around with that, right? You want the roughness to be really high because you don't want this to be reflective. But the problem now is if we look at this in our layout mode, we rotate out of this and we go to material preview, notice how this is all mapped wrong, right? So all we need to do to fix that is I just want to go into UV editing mode and I just want to tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to do an A to select all, and I'm just going to right click and I'm just going to go up to UV and I'm just going to click on the option for project from view. And basically what that's going to do is that's going to set up our camera UVs right here so that they're aligned with our current view. So because they're projected from view, now if I go back and look at this, it's looking a lot better, right? So we do still have kind of an issue in here. The issue that we have in here right now is that you're getting this kind of like bending in your image. Well, the reason you're getting the bending in your image is because there's not enough geometric data in here. There's no subdivisions. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go into my modifiers and I'm just going to add a subdivision surface modifier, which already doesn't do what we want because we don't want it to pull all of these corners in. But what you can do is you can go over to a simple subdivision right here, and notice how if I toggle this off, that's still a problem. However, if I toggle it back on, it looks a lot better. And you can set this to like a level of 2 in your viewport. And basically what that's doing is that's subdividing the shape so that the UVs have more data to follow along. And then this stuff all of a sudden starts running a little bit better. And then once you've done that, then these are going to map to your surfaces a lot better. And then from there, if you want to keep modeling, you can just go back into this camera view and just keep adding detail, right? So for example, if I wanted to add this little bump out over here, I could just add a loop cut right here, maybe another loop cut right here, and then I would just extrude this surface out like this. And we may jump into wireframe mode, and in this case I don't want to extrude this surface, I just want to move it. But then now if we rotate out of this, we look at our material preview, notice how the UVs on these new faces aren't set up right yet. So you can just go in here and you can just select them. So in this case, for example, I'm just going to select the UVs on this surface, and I'm going to select the option for project from view right here, and that's going to map them properly along this view. So modeling from photos is really easy directly inside of Blender using this tool. All right, so super excited to see a tool like this directly inside of Blender. It's very similar to the Match Photo tool inside of SketchUp. So I will link to that on this page. If you want to see more tutorials on how to use this tool, leave a comment below and let me know. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.